These fabulous cars started out as the dreams of two young farmers from Iowa. They came to the United States as children in 1884 with their brothers, sisters, and widowed mother. The two boys, Fred and Augie, or Augie Duesenberg, discovered that farming on the frontiers in America was different than in Germany. Unlike Europe, there were vast, almost unlimited spaces that could be farmed. The only limit to what an individual could accomplish rested on their own abilities, not what they had inherited. Harnessing the power of machines was the key to transforming this frontier. The Duesenberg brothers were inspired by the promise of farm machinery, not by farming. Each brother had a certain skill. Fred was adept at design and engineering, while Augie knew how to build and repair things. When the bicycle fad hit in the 1880s, the brothers decided to jump on board. They opened up shop and began to build and repair bicycles. Bicycles are fast, and they were both drawn by speed. Fred was an accomplished racer and held a speed record for 14 years. Augie also liked the racing scene. While bicycles were thrilling, a new mechanical wonder captured their attention: automobiles. They started out in 1902 by modifying a Marion automobile and racing it at a county fair in Iowa. Fred won and the brothers' destiny was set. 1 year later, Fred secured a job as a test driver for an upstart automaker, Rambler. Within 2 years, he and Augie were racing for Mason, owned by washing machine magnate Senator Maytag. They're always opening up the engines to make them go faster. This led to the development of their own engines. Next step, their own car. They entered two cars in the 1914 Indianapolis 500. Eddie Rickenbach was at the wheel of one. He was a racer before he became a World War I flying ace. He didn't ace this race for sure. The Duesenbergs finished 10th and 12th. Finishing was quite an accomplishment. Most of the cars didn't complete all 200 laps. The Duesenberg's 80+ miles per hour performance was impressive. The brothers continued to use racing as a way to test their ideas. They pioneered overhead camshaft engines, superchargers, multiple valves per cylinder, and other innovations that increased horsepower. Unfortunately, by 1916, it was clear they couldn't make any money from racing. The solution? Build other products and use the profits to keep racing. The onset of World War I created demand for engineers and manufacturers. After winning a contract to build aircraft engines, the Duesenbergs moved to New York. They renovated an old factory in New Jersey and began to produce engines under license from Bugatti. Using a garage behind their home, they also went to work at creating new engines for auto racing. This led to the development of the Duesenberg's straight 8-cylinder engine. They would serve as the platform for all their future engines. Running the factory provided them with the experience they need to launch a car company after the war. The Duesenbergs were drawn to the maker of the automotive world, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They found investors in Indiana who shared their vision to the racing and passenger car company and relocated to Indianapolis. They built cars for the track, and in 1921 their first road car, the Model A, with the Duesenberg Straight 8. This advanced automobile offered the first mass-produced straight 8 engine and the first 4-wheel hydraulic brakes produced in the United States. It was the fastest production car on the road at that time. Racing gave them the knowledge to create lightweight, high-revving, powerful cars with superior handling. Unfortunately, the cars weren't very stylish, but people like film star Rudolph Valentino were attracted to these fast, high-performance machines. As planned, the profits from Model A allowed them to pursue racing. In 1921, they took a team of drivers to the French Grand Prix. They thought they were done for when their number one driver, Jimmy Murphy, was hurt in a practice. But he had the hospital tape him up and came back to the track to race. The determined Murphy piloted this powerful Duesenberg to victory. He was the first American to win a European Grand Prix. He came in far ahead of a second and third place French entrants. The French team was so enraged by the foreign victors' win that they wouldn't acknowledge them at the race awards dinner. The team took their trophy and went home. Ignored in France, they turned the win into an advertising campaign at home. They continued to rack up wins, including the 1924, 1925, and 1927 Indianapolis 500. While their racing wins kept them in the headlines, they weren't translating them into profits. Their costs exceeded the revenue, and the car business wasn't providing the revenue stream they had expected. After 6 years on the market, sales of the now outdated Model A had stalled at 650 cars. Fred and Augie needed money for a new model, but their investors had cleaned out the company and disappeared. On October 26, 1926, the company was acquired by E.L. Cod. He wanted to use the high-performance car as the foundation for a brand new company. Cod made his mark in the automobile business, selling cars in Chicago. He believed he knew what the buyers wanted. He planned to combine Duesenberg with another Indiana car maker he'd acquired, Auburn. Cod took 750 gaudy unsold Aubans, gave them new splashy paint jobs complete with pin strips, and sold them. He reinvested the proceeds, transforming Auburn into an exciting and profitable company. The first Auburn Bottle Speedsters became icons sought by Hollywood stars and wealthy young socialites. It wasn't a very practical car, but it was sexy, and when it flew by, it turned heads. With Auburn under his belt, Cod was confident that he could work the same magic with Duesenberg. He vowed the best car in the world. He enlisted the help of Fred Duesenberg to create the biggest, fastest, most expensive car ever built. As work proceeded on the revamped Duesenberg, Cod instructed the engineers to develop a car named after himself, the first production car to offer front-wheel drive, the L29 Cod. He wanted a car line that would fill the price niche between Auburn and Duesenberg, but he wanted it to stand out too. Front-wheel drive allowed it to be lower than any other car on the road. It gave the Cod a sporty yet elegant look. People flocked to this trend-setting car when it was introduced in 1929, but the Aubans and the L29 would be overshadowed by the Duesenbergs. The first Model J Duesenberg rolled out in 1928. Its high horsepower engine made it one of the fastest cars on the road. It was also expensive in an era when a standard Ford cost $450. An average Duesenberg might cost $13,000 to $15,000. Buyers would usually just order an engine and a rolling chassis from the factory. They then turned this over to a custom body builder to create the most flamboyant cars ever seen. Guess what would be more flamboyant? Subscribing. When Wall Street crashed, Cod had to scramble to keep his over-the-top car company afloat. Selling Duesenbergs during the early dark days of the Depression was a challenge, but Cod was confident his cars would find buyers. With millions out of work selling apples on street corners and living in shanties, there were people who thought buying such a car was in bad taste. But some of the ultra-rich didn't seem to care. They bought Duesenberg. This select group made Duesenberg a top status symbol. Cod was so certain of his car's appeal, he didn't even show the product in advertising. While kings, queens, princes, and the lords of the business worlds bought Duesenbergs, they also found fans among the Hollywood stars. Gary Coop and Clark Gable were set to race their Duesenberg Roadsters down Sunset Boulevard. This notoriety pumped up the Duesenberg's image. Cord realized that star power was important for his company's continued health. He was an early believer in product placement. He made sure that his cars were available for photo shoots and would be seen in movies. Like today's marketers, he paid stars such as Jimmy Cagney a promotional fee to pose with a Duesenberg. The most expensive Duesenberg ever produced was called the 20 grand. This exquisite car was fitted with a custom body that cost about $12,000. It rode on the standard Duesenberg chassis that netted another $8,500 to the total. At the time, $20,000 was unheard of to pay. Today, this car is worth millions. Many of the custom Duesenbergs that were built have soared into the car auction price stratosphere. Many Duesenberg collectors are fond of the supercharged models, the so-called SJs, were capable of propelling these 3-ton automobiles down the road at over 100 miles per hour. While capable of escaping from the clashes of pursuing enemies, these cars couldn't outrun the impact of the Depression. The sour economy eventually eroded the demand for custom coach-built, high-end automobiles like the Duesenberg. Cord hatched a plan to keep his automotive empire alive. He started work on a brand new futuristic car, the Cord 810. A talented young stylist, Gordon Buick, was commissioned to come up with a modern design that would appeal to young people who wanted something fresh. Fred Duesenberg had died, so Buick turned to Augie to help him create a car that could save the company. The company was in dire straits, and the team had very little research and development money. They had even less time. To demonstrate that they were still a viable business, they had to have 100 cars ready for the 1935 New York Auto Show. This meant months of all-night work, often unpaid, to handle the cars in time. E.L. Cord didn't share his employees' hardships. He was hauled up in England to avoid the grasp of the United States securities regulators. He had been accused of stock manipulation. Some believe he invested a couple of $1 million in the Cord 810 project to demonstrate that the company was viable and so pump up the stock price. Once the stock peaked, he would sell his shares and move on. We don't know if Buick was aware that he was a pawn in Cord's stock game, or if he was, he surely didn't let it get in the way. His front-wheel drive Cord 810 was hailed as an instant classic. People say it's perfectly proportioned. He had made sure it looked good from any angle. The new Cord transformed the design of all automobiles. Taking the Cord's lead, radiator shells would disappear, as would running boards. Unfortunately, the car's stunning good looks couldn't keep the company afloat. By 1937, Auburn, Cord and Duesenberg had stopped building new cars. The last chassis were sold off and the factory closed. During the 8 years Duesenberg was the king of automobiles, only 481 cars have been built. This was what Cord had promised to produce every year. Once upon a time, in a digital realm not too far away, a journey began. A journey of creativity, inspiration, and shared moments. You, dear viewer, have been a vital part of this enchanting tale. So, if you found joy in our time together, consider leaving a sprinkle of love. A like to brighten the path, a comment to forge a deeper connection, and a share to spread the magic far and wide. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on those delightful notifications so you will never miss a single chapter of our tale. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with wonder and your dreams be touched by magic. I'm Wako, and I'll see you on the next one.